Tonight, Putin is on America's doorstep with nuclear-capable bombers that can fly at twice the speed of sound. It's a bold move right out of the Cold War as the Russian president tries to establish a military foothold near American shores.
We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing ground.
Thank you for joining us. You are listening to A Radio, and this is the Morning Moment. We're on weekdays, 11:45 Eastern. Follow us on Spreaker.com and click on the like button. This piece caught my eye. It's a particularly interesting piece, and it's from the Trumpet magazine. The links will be on my site. The piece is called Preparing to Storm America's Castle. I thought that was a great title and paints a quite amazing picture of foreboding of what could happen. The subtitle is A Foreign Power That Controls the Caribbean Sea Could Cripple the US Economy. This continues on with my theme about what China's up to. And you heard in the last few days that China's looking to decouple from the United States, whatever that means. Good luck with that, China. Here's the piece. The United States is being threatened by hostile nations taking over the Caribbean Sea. Major news sources pay little attention to this region, but the Caribbean is vital to US security. This sea not only connects the east coast with the Pacific Ocean via the Panama Canal, it guards the mouth of the Gulf of Mexico. Half of Americans' seaborne trade passes through the Gulf. So a foreign power that controls the Caribbean could cripple the US economy by restricting its access to oceanic shipping. I think, quite honestly, that's very unlikely, because there'd be probably World War III, but we'll assume for the sake of this article that it's true. This geographic reality is why Russia and China want to challenge US dominance in the Caribbean. These aspiring superpowers are forging alliances with socialist governments in Cuba, Nicaragua and Venezuela. If these Latin dictatorships become staging grounds for Russia and China, a coalition of nations could potentially cut off US access to the Panama Canal and seal off the Straits of Florida and the Yucatan Channel. As shocking as this scenario sounds, the Bible reveals that enemies will seize control of the world's most strategic maritime choke points and lay siege to the United States. America is going to lose access to the Panama Canal, the Straits of Florida and the Windward Passage, the Yucatan Channel and many other shipping lanes that its people rely on for food and electronic components, oil, raw materials and other goods. The results will be devastating. The troika of tyranny, they call that. Apparently that's in the Bible. Didn't know that. US National Security Advisor John Bolton addressed a group of Cuban and Venezuelan refugees at the Freedom Tower in Miami on November 1st, 2018. He pledged to push back against dictators in Latin America. In Cuba, Venezuela and Nicaragua, we see the perils of poisonous ideologies left unchecked, and the dangers of domination and suppression, he said. This troika of tyranny, this triangle of terror stretching from Havana, Caracas to Managua, is the cause of immense human suffering, the impetus of enormous regional instability, and the genesis of a sordid cradle of communism in the Western Hemisphere. Bolton didn't announce specific actions against Nicaragua, but the Trump administration has already levied sanctions against Cuba and Venezuela. These economic sanctions have weakened the corrupt governments of these nations. They have not, however, prevented them from seeking help from Russia and China. During the Cold War, the Soviets established relations with Cuba and Nicaragua in an effort to threaten US access to the Panama Canal. Now the Russians and the Chinese are resuscitating this plan to undermine America. Russia offered Cuba $43 million in loans in November to buy Russian military equipment, and it vowed to expand, quote, strategic ties with the island. On October 10, 2018, Newsweek reported a senior Russian official as saying that Russia is considering building a military base in Cuba. This would be the first base in Cuba since the Kremlin closed the Soviet-era electronic spying outpost near Havana in 2001. Meanwhile, 2 Russian nuclear-capable bombers flew a patrol over the Caribbean on December 12, 2018, from a base in Venezuela. After this alarming incident, one Russian daily, Novetsy, I don't know how you pronounce that, Gazeta, suggested that Russia establish a permanent military presence on the island of La Orchia, northeast of Venezuela's capital city. The Russian government-owned TASS agency said this presence would represent one of the largest semi-permanent deployments of Russian military equipment in the region since 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis, which marked the height of the Cold War. Russia is helping modernize Nicaraguan military at the same time China is signing economic agreements with Cuba, Nicaragua and Venezuela, Barbados, Grenada, Guyana, Haiti, Jamaica, Panama and other nations. These are steps towards establishing a strong economic and military presence in America's backyard. At present, neither Russia or China has a naval power to challenge the US in this region. But what happens when a financial crunch forces the US to drastically cut military spending? There are strong signs this will happen soon, at which point the alliances of Russia and China are forging in the Caribbean Sea will give them great power over America. The US is protected on the west by the world's largest ocean and the Rocky Mountains. It's protected in the north by the Arctic tundra and a friendly nation of Canada. I'm not sure about that. It's protected on the east by the world's largest ocean and the Appalachian Mountains. It's protected on the south by the Chickahougan, whatever it's pronounced, desert. Lying with these natural fortifications is the Mississippi Basin, the world's largest contiguous expanse of arable land. This basin is the key to US dominance over North America. About 57% of US seaborne exports flow out of the Mississippi Basin to international markets via the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean Sea. Cuba lies between Florida and the Yucatan Peninsula, an enormous gatehouse between the US heartland and the outside world. The threat of a naval blockade against the Mississippi Basin is why the US supported Cuba's independence from Spain and took over the island as a protectorate upon winning the Spanish-American War in 1898. It's why Soviets tried to use Cuba against the US, and why the US tried to oust the Soviet Union from Cuba in 1962. Now the US is allowing Russia and China to forge alliances with Cuba, Nicaragua and Venezuela. This is setting the stage for a time when the alliance of hostile nations will finally lay siege to America and refuse to let shipments pass the gatehouse in either direction. Mart of Nations. With a German-led Europe. But I don't think you've heard that from anywhere else, have you? And it's not me trying to be clever. I don't remember the mainstream media talking about this threat. And didn't Ronald Reagan save Grenada? I seem to remember that he put troops in there and stopped it being a dictatorship or something. A military dictatorship. I seem to remember something about that. Maybe I imagined that. But it just shows who your friends really are. You save them from a dictatorship, and this is the way they pay you back. The same with Haiti. Millions of dollars given to Haiti, yet they turn again to socialism. And Russia, which is socialism and basically communist. right now. They're just going back to communism, slowly but surely creeping back to communism. And no one can see it. It's amazing that no one can see this. I disagree with the analogy that America is weak. America is not weak. America is very strong. The problem with this, to my mind, is that it sets up a confrontation that nobody wants. And if the right president is in power, it will be sorted. If the wrong president is in power, well, look what happened when Jimmy Carter was in office. Can America afford to have another Jimmy Carter? Because you get no second chances with communists and dictators. China is looking to dominate the world. And the only way you're going to stop them is to bankrupt them. The only way America is going to beat China is to bankrupt it. And the only way you bankrupt it is to give it no market. If China doesn't have a market to sell its goods, it's in trouble, because its population will rise up and take it over, which is a good thing for the world, to get rid of the communists once and for all. And we have a democratic China in the world. Wouldn't that be good for all of us? And then Russia could be crushed economically like a bug, which is what it should be. Nobody should be buying oil or gas, but you've got Germany buying gas from Russia. Why would that be? Why is Germany buying gas from Russia? Interesting thought, isn't it? How are those windmills working out for your energy policy in Germany? Not too well, I understand. And they want to force windmills on us everywhere, and to drive those electric roller skates all over the place. No thank you. No thank you. Sooner or later we're going to have to stand up to these people. And the UN and China and Russia, we can't keep turning our backs on what's going on. We're going to have to face it, hard though it is. If we don't have a strong military like Canada doesn't, like Britain doesn't, we're going to be hard pushed to fight them. And fight them we'll have to. Just a final thought. Why is China building icebreakers? A fleet of them. They don't need icebreakers. Not for their part of the world. So why would they build icebreakers? I'm guessing the same reason they'd build a hypersonic machine gun. For defence, of course. Purely for defence. You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, where you can find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Gab, and email. We are also on Spotify. Just go to the podcast section and type Canadian Politics with a twist, and you'll find us. We are continuing to reach out to you, so please pass on the links. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. You can listen to all our morning moments at Spreaker.com under A Radio. That's EHRADIO, A Radio. And please click on the like button. And you can now hear a weekend review of our podcasts on WHBJ DB, News Talk Radio. Join us and many others. And you can find all our podcasts and morning moments at aradio.wordpress.com. Click on the Morning Moments tab.